The neighborhood had always been a quiet symphony, a seamless blend of morning bird calls and the gentle rustle of leaves, punctuated only by the distant hum of life going about its daily routine. We moved here for that very melody, seeking refuge from the cacophony of the city. Beyond the hills, our home was a sanctuary, a place to nurture dreams and memories. But as with every symphony, there was a discordant note. Her name was Karen. She was the self-appointed arbiter of our HOA, a perennial presence at every meeting. Her voice a sharp instrument slicing through any semblance of peace. Her reign was one of petty decrees. Letters slipped under doors like whispered threats, reminders of rules and regulations that twisted the notion of community into something resembling control. The first time we crossed paths was over an innocuous garden gnome, a harmless figure. It stood sentinel over our petunias, a whimsical addition that drew the ire of Karen's vigilant gaze. Her note was curt, a command veiled in concern for neighborhood aesthetics. I saw it for what it was, an opening salvo in a campaign of petty tyranny. I could have removed the gnome, placated her in the interest of peace, but there was something about her imperious tone that stirred the quiet rebellion within me. Instead, I repositioned the gnome, turning its face slightly, almost as if it watched Karen's house with a bemused expression. It was a small act, but one that carried a silent message we would not be so easily molded. Our resistance seemed to fuel her fervor. The notes became more frequent, each one a testament to her relentless dedication to order as she imagined it. Trash cans left out for too long, Christmas lights lingering a week past New Year's, each infraction meticulously documented. Her eyes were everywhere, a shadow that stretched across the sunlit streets, her intentions as clear as a summer sky. Yet, for all her vigilance, my wife and I remained mostly undisturbed. We treated her missives as trivialities, small ripples on the surface of our tranquil existence. There was no malice in our response, merely a quiet refusal to bend to her will. Life carried on, the cadence of our days largely uninterrupted by her intrusions. But then, the incident. It was as if the universe had conspired to paint a dramatic tableau, with Karen at its center, a misplaced step, an unfortunate slip, and my wife was sent tumbling down the stairs. The echo of her fall was a shattering note, reverberating through the hall, leaving a silence heavy with implication. Karen stood at the top, a momentary flicker of shock crossing her features before her mask of authority reasserted itself. It was an accident, she claimed, an unfortunate mishap in the midst of her latest inspection. No apology, just a statement of fact, as if the sheer weight of her position absolved her of any wrongdoing. I watched her retreat, the image of my wife, vulnerable and bruised, etching itself into my mind. There was a shift within me, a subtle alignment of resolve. Karen had overstepped, her petty tyranny bleeding into something perilously close to harm. She didn't know the connections woven through the fabric of my life, hidden yet formidable, waiting for a call to action. One number, one voice on the line, and the gears would shift, turning the tide. Karen had underestimated us, viewed us as mere figures in her landscape. It was her mistake. The calm remained. I was a pool of still water, serene on the surface, with currents running deep beneath. And Karen, she was about to discover just how profound those waters were. The morning after the stairs incident, the sky was a cruel, cheerful blue. Birds sang as if nothing had happened, a stark contrast to the uneasy quiet that had settled over our home. My wife, still nursing her bruises with a stoic grace, moved carefully through the kitchen. I could see the pain hitching in her breath when she thought I wasn't looking. Karen, our neighbor and the self-appointed queen of the homeowners association, had taken her campaign to new heights. With a flick of her manicured hand, she had turned our once peaceful cul-de-sac into a theater of petty power plays. Absurd rules popped up like weeds. Grass must not exceed precisely 3 inches, trash bins positioned at a precise angle, and, in a bizarre twist, holiday decorations banned except for her favored few. Citations appeared in mailboxes like unsolicited invitations to a party nobody wanted to attend. They were petty misdemeanors, each one crafted with a lawyer's precision to target our household. A garden gnome was accused of being an eyesore, our welcome mat, an affront to her aesthetic sensibilities. The air tasted of chalk and discontent, and the neighborhood vibrated with an undercurrent of tension, as if waiting for a storm to break. Gossip, Karen's favored currency, spread among the neighbors like a plague. Whispered rumors, half-truths, and outright lies twisted through conversations. It was a shadow theater of reputational ruin. The tales grew more outrageous with each retelling. Like unchecked wildfire, they painted us as villains in our own story, architects of chaos in her carefully curated world. Through it all, I watched and listened, a quiet observer in this absurd play. There was a peculiar energy in holding back, in letting her believe she was the puppet master. Power was a curious thing. It ebbed and flowed. It could drown you or set you free, depending on how you wielded it. My phone, a silent sentinel in my pocket, buzzed with a message, a subtle reminder of the call I could make, my ace in the hole, the connection Karen didn't know I had. I thought of the man on the other end of the line, a childhood friend who'd risen through the ranks of a powerful law firm. He was sharp, relentless, and, most importantly, fond of my wife's homemade apple pie. But I wasn't ready to make the call. Not yet. Timing was everything. There was a strange satisfaction in watching Karen build her house of cards, oblivious to the breeze I could summon with a single phone call. Patience. I reminded myself. Let her weave her web a little longer. Each thread she spun was another she'd have to untangle when the time came. For now, I would let her think she was in control. There was power in being underestimated. In the evenings, as the sun bled into the horizon, our home became a sanctuary. My wife and I retreated into its warmth, closing the door on the outside world. We spoke little of Karen's antics, choosing instead to savor small moments, the comfort of a shared silence, the rustle of pages turning, the gentle exhale of the day slipping away. And so, the game continued. Karen, unaware of the storm gathering just beyond her line of sight, continued her campaign. I watched, waited, and planned, knowing that when the time came, justice would be swift and, oh, so sweet. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor. One moment, silence reigns, and the next, chaos emerges without warning. Our lives had been a testament to this. Each event scripted by an unseen hand, orchestrating a cosmic irony that even Shakespeare would envy. After Karen's brazen act, that careless push that sent my wife sprawling down the stairs, my mind whirred with a quiet determination. Patience became my ally. Each day unfolded like a scene in a play. Every interaction meticulously documented. Details became my obsession. The way Karen watched us from her window, her eyes like a hawk scanning its territory, how her lips curled into a self-satisfied smirk. As she surveyed the neighborhood, she ruled with a petty tyranny. In the evenings, I sat by my wife's side, her bruises a vivid palette of injustice. The bandages were a reminder of her vulnerability, a testament to an encounter with a force as reckless as it was insidious. But anger was a wildfire I could not let burn unchecked. It needed to be channeled, harnessed with precision. Technology became my silent accomplice, cameras discreetly placed, capturing every transgression, audio recordings of Karen's voice condescending, venomous, lacing the air with her own brand of malice. I gathered evidence like a meticulous artist assembling a mosaic. Each piece, a fragment of truth. I reached out to the network I had quietly built over the years, friends in legal circles, allies with influence, a web of support, woven with threads of loyalty and shared grievances against the tyranny of Karen's reign. One contact in particular, a formidable figure with a penchant for justice, became my confidant. This was no ordinary legal counsel. This was a person who understood the art of subtlety and the power of precision strikes. The plan unfolded like a slow crescendo, each measure deliberate, each note resonant. The neighborhood meeting was the stage, the perfect setting for our theater of retribution. Karen, oblivious, perched in her chair with the arrogance of a queen addressing her subjects. Her voice dripped with the honeyed poison of false concern, her words a litany of rules and regulations wrapped in the guise of community care. But the tide was turning. The murmurs began as whispers, spreading like ripples across a pond. Neighbors, once passive spectators, now emboldened by the quiet storm I had sown. It was not confrontation they feared, but liberation they sought. As I stood to address the gathering, the room held its breath. The evidence was my script, the truth, my weapon, each word carefully chosen, punctuated with the weight of undeniable proof. The recordings played, Karen's voice echoing through the room, unmasking her duplicity. Silence. Then a shift. Karen's facade cracked, the veneer of control slipping. Eyes widened, some in shock, others in grim satisfaction. The scales tipped, the balance restored. Karen's reign crumbled under the weight of her own words, her empire of intimidation dismantled by the very community she sought to dominate. The irony was not lost on anyone, power reclaimed. Justice not delivered through vengeance, but through a quiet, relentless truth. The meeting adjourned, but the echoes lingered. Karen retreated, her kingdom reduced to rubble, her influence dissipated like smoke in the wind. We returned home, my wife's hand in mine, knowing that justice need not roar like a lion. Sometimes it speaks softly, with the undeniable voice of truth. The elevator doors whispered open, revealing the polished, marble-floored lobby. I stepped out, my footsteps echoing softly in the early morning quiet. The sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting intricate patterns on the floor, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. The concierge nodded a silent greeting. I returned the gesture, maintaining the facade of calm. The world didn't need to see the turmoil beneath. Karen had crossed a line. Her arrogance had manifested in a dangerous, tangible form, sending my wife tumbling down cold, unforgiving stairs. Bruises blossomed across her skin, vivid reminders of the day's betrayal. But Karen didn't know who I had on speed dial. Her ignorance would be her downfall. The law firm's office occupied the top floor of a sleek, glass tower that overlooked the city like a sentinel. I stood before their doors, briefly considering the irony. Karen believed she stood above us all. But today, I would climb higher than she ever dared. The receptionist offered a practiced smile, but I barely registered it. My focus was singular, a laser cutting through the fog of emotions. In the plush, expansive office, legal minds were already at work, clicking away at keyboards, sifting through papers that could alter destinies. The senior partner, a woman whose reputation preceded her, met me with steely eyes that bore into mine. She assessed me with the precision of a surgeon, gauging my resolve, and I did not flinch, because when someone you love is hurt, flinching is not an option. I laid out our story, each detail unfolding like a chapter in a grim novel. She listened, her pen making swift, sure strokes on a legal pad. I imagined every word was a scalpel, carving out justice from the stone-cold wall of Karen's impunity. My heart pounded a steady drumbeat of retribution, but my voice remained measured, as if the calm could hold back the storm longer. There was no need for raised voices or clenched fists here, just the quiet, relentless power of the law. It was a dance of civility wrapped around a core of unyielding strength. I could almost feel the grudging respect Karen would be forced to muster, respect for the power she had underestimated, for the mechanism she thought she could manipulate without consequence. The partner leaned back, a slight, approving nod punctuating my tale. "We'll begin immediately," she said, her words crisp and deliberate. It was a promise that echoed with potential, a single line, but it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken assurances. I left the office feeling lighter, yet anchored by purpose. Outside, the city thrummed with life. Cars honked, people jostled on the sidewalks, and the sun continued its steady climb. I marveled at how the world went on, oblivious to the shifts happening beneath its surface. But I knew, and soon Karen would know too. Her reign was not over yet, but the foundations were already cracking. She had set the dominoes in motion with her reckless shove. Now they would fall, one by one, with deliberate precision. Her world, so carefully curated, was on borrowed time. As I returned home, the elevator doors closed with a soft sigh. Cocooning me in reflection, I felt a wave of calm wash over me, as if the universe had acknowledged my intent and approved. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Physics taught us that, and Karen was about to learn it in the most unforgettable way. The courtroom felt colder than the tiled hallways of our apartment complex, as Karen sat there, peering down her nose with a haughtiness that seemed carved from stone. I waited for the proceedings to begin. My wife's bruises had faded, but the memory of her fall, orchestrated by Karen's vindictive shove, was as fresh as morning dew in my mind. It began simply, a nudge during a petty argument, a staircase, and a moment suspended in horrific clarity. Karen's scowl, my wife's scream, the dreadful thud of inevitability, all leading to this sterile room where justice was meant to be dispensed like sugar in bitter coffee. My fingers grazed the phone in my pocket, a comforting habit I'd developed over the past few weeks. It was a lifeline, a connection to the powerful forces that Karen, in her misplaced arrogance, had underestimated. She didn't realize that when you push people down, the gravity of your actions can pull you under. The courtroom was a theater, and we were all playing our parts. The prosecutor, a hawk-eyed woman with a sharp edge to her words, painted Karen as the villain. Her words sliced through the air, leaving no doubt about the malice behind Karen's actions. Each sentence, each pause, was an expertly played note in a symphony of condemnation. Karen, oblivious in her self-assigned role, played the wounded lamb, batting her lashes in practiced innocence. But the truth was a persistent ghost, haunting every corner of this room. It lurked in the quiet determination of my wife's gaze, in the steady way she recounted her fall, each word crafted without embellishment or hesitation. Her voice was a gentle river, washing away the grime of deceit that Karen tried to spread. The judge, a man whose eyes held the weight of countless judgments, listened with the patience of a mountain. He didn't rush, nor did he lean towards the theatrics Karen attempted. In his measured expression, I found a strange comfort. Justice, though slow, was relentless. Then came the moment I'd anticipated. The courtroom's mundane rhythm broke as I was called to recount the aftermath. My words were simple, a thread in the tapestry of events. But the power lay not in what was spoken, but in what was left unsaid. My hand slipped into my pocket. The phone a reassuring weight, a reminder of allies unseen yet omnipresent. Karen's eyes darted toward me, a flicker of recognition, of unease. She finally understood who was on speed dial, who had been watching, listening, ready to act. My network, an invisible web of connections, had gently tightened around her arrogance until escape was no longer possible. Her facade crumbled, the mask slipping to reveal stark panic. It was brief, a flash of raw fear before she cloaked it with indignation, but it was too late. The unraveling had begun, and her reinvention of reality was as futile as trying to catch smoke with bare hands. The gavel fell like the final chord of a requiem, resonating through the room, through the tangled narrative Karen had spun. The community, our community, was her stage no longer. It had slipped from her grip, restored to those who truly cared for its well-being. As the room emptied, I lingered, a quiet storm of satisfaction brewing within. Karen, now sidelined, was a lesson in hubris. My wife stood beside me, her strength a beacon, her resilience an unspoken testament to the life we would rebuild, free from the shadows cast by our neighbor's malice. Outside, the air was crisp, a new chapter in every breath. We walked together, leaving behind the courthouse and its echoes, stepping into a world where justice, though late, had finally arrived.